Okay, let's just start over. Hey there guys, and welcome back to Dino Reacts. So today we are looking at Halloween H20, 20 years later. So the movie itself, guys, came to be when Jamie Lee Curtis wanted to celebrate 20 years in the business. Now she did contact John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, and all three of them had talks about bringing the whole crew back together. Unfortunately, over time, both Carpenter and Hill left the project, but Jamie Lee Curtis kept going with it. The movie itself forgets all of the other sequels, bar Halloween 2, and pretty much finds Laurie Strode in hiding from Michael Myers. Now she has changed her name to Kerry Tate, and she's the head of a very elite college in California. And by far the best thing about this movie is the performance by Jamie Lee Curtis. So you can tell, she does care about the character of Laurie Strode and she wants to do the character justice. One thing that was interesting that she wanted to put into the movie was what happens to a victim after these horror movies, what happens in their lives. So when we find Laurie Strode, she is a drug addict, she's an alcoholic, and she just can't get past the events of 1978. Because of the traumatic events in the first movie, she's a very damaged relationship with her son John. So she's constantly looking behind her, she's constantly convinced that Michael Myers will come back one day and kill her and her family. So over time, Laurie Strode decides to fight back against Michael. She gets that Sigourney Weaver moment where she gets to pick up the axe and become the hunter. And I think that's what Jamie Lee Curtis really wanted with this movie, just to show a woman who's had her entire life destroyed by the events of one night, fight back finally 20 years later and save her family. But also when she does decide to fight back, she is absolutely kick-ass in those scenes. That entire last act of the movie is non-stop action as Michael and Laurie both try to take each other out. Now I do like the supporting cast in this one, particularly LL Cool J. And a reason for that particularly is because the character is relatable. So he's a likeable character, he's a fun character you can watch on screen. Josh Hartnett as well plays Laurie Strode's son, and they have some absolutely incredible scenes together. They're some of my favourite scenes in the entire movie where they're going back and forth and just talking about the effects trauma had on this family. The movie itself is also littered with many throwbacks and Easter eggs to the original movie. So throughout the film you will find different little Easter eggs thrown in. Even in the opening scene of the movie brings back the character of Marion Chambers, the nurse from the first film. Now that's a great way just to set up the story and let us know where Laurie Strode is and why Michael Myers wants to find her. We also have a scene with Jamie Lee Curtis and her mother Janet Leigh, who played Marion Crane in the original Psycho. Again, it's a great throwback scene to the original movie, but it's also fun to see two Scream Queens on screen together. Another positive is the slow burn of this movie. Compared to the last movie in the franchise, which was very fast paced, this one, especially the second act, is much more of a slow burn. Not a lot happens in the movie. It's a lot about building suspense and tension and just kind of going through Laurie's paranoia more than anything else, which is great because you develop the character bit by bit. So when the big payoff comes at the end, when both characters come face to face, it's a lot bigger, it's a lot grander, and it comes across as a lot more epic. The sister storyline also works a lot in this movie, especially since Michael Myers is just tracking Laurie Strode down. He's not tracking anyone else down really but her. So the sister storyline works in this. And for me, if you watch Halloween 1, 2 and H20, it's a perfect trilogy. Michael himself also feels so much more like that original version of Michael Myers, which is funny because the actor playing him didn't really look into the character at the time. He didn't look at the other Halloween movies, so he did his own thing, but he's probably the closest up until that point to Nick Castle. So just his stature alone, how he looks, how he moves is very much like Nick Castle's original version. The final act of the movie as well, when Laurie and Michael do go to battle, is non-stop action, and it goes from set piece to set piece as they try to take each other out. For me, it's probably the best ending we've ever had to a Halloween movie, and you can see why when you watch it. The ending alone, how they wrap up the story, would have been the perfect ending if they had left it alone. But even as I said, if you watch Halloween 1, 2 and H20, it's a perfect trilogy to throw on over Halloween. And guys, my last positive with this one are the kills. So we have a great mixture of old school Halloween and the gore we had come to expect from the later sequels. So I like the mixture in this one. A lot of them are slash and stab deaths, but at the same time we do definitely get some gory deaths in there, particularly with the teenage cast. Now negatives guys for this movie, I'll be honest, I don't have too many negatives. One in particular though is sometimes it can feel a bit too much like a 90s slasher. For me guys, I've always said a lot of the Halloween movies and just slashers in general tend to copy the decade they're in. You know, if you look at Halloween 4 to Halloween 6, they have a lot more Jason Voorhees type vibes to them. And that's the same with Halloween H20. Scream had obviously become very popular at that time. Kevin Williams also wrote the script to Scream and Halloween H20, so you can see little nuances in both scripts there. Besides that though, the script is a lot sharper, it's a lot more updated to those late 90s vibes. Score in this one for the most part is missing that classic Halloween vibe. You don't get that Halloween score in this one. Instead, you get scores from other movies around that time. So 90s slashers tend to have a very particular score, especially in their chase sequences. And my other negative would be the multiple masks they use in this movie. So when they were making the movie, they weren't really sure which mask they wanted to use. Now the reason for that was because they were forgetting a lot of the sequels in the franchise. So they weren't sure if they wanted to use a mask that looked too much like Halloween 6, when the audience are expected to completely forget these movies. If you look at the opening scene, the Myers mask from Halloween 6 is pretty much the mask they use in that opening shot. But as the movie goes on, the mask tends to change over and over and over again. By the end of production, 5 different masks had been used in the movie, including one which was completely in CGI. For me, my favourite mask in the film is that first mask at the start of the movie. Yes, it's closer to Halloween 6, but it's a mask I always liked. You know, the CGI mask is by far the worst mask in this, but we have a lot of bad masks in the film. Even the main mask they use, you know, it's not one of the best. It's always been a bit of a strange one, given that you can see Myers' eyes. Even with the multiple masks in here, even with the score used also, there are a lot more positives to this movie. As I said already, the performance by Jamie Lee Curtis is definitely the best thing about the movie, as well as that the entire final act is non-stop action and everything you'd want from a concluding chapter in a Halloween movie. If you haven't checked this one out guys, I 100% recommend checking this one out. You will not be let down. It is balls to the wall action, horror and suspense. It's kind of everything you want out of a Halloween movie, and it's a mixture of all the greatest hits. So guys, that's just my review of Halloween H20. Let me know what you think about this movie yourself. If you're a fan, let me know in the comments, and if you're not, let me know that also. As always guys, subscribe to the channel. I will be doing another Halloween movie soon, but until next time, Heidi ho.